an argument for that. Oh, hey, man, we're live. Episode 98, dude. 2 away from 100, This Life in Tech. I'm Jason.
And I'm Dan.
I'll tell you what, man. My mood has dramatically improved over the last few days. I got some plants. Finally, my plants came. And I got two more up on a shelf I got.
What kind of plants are these?
Oh, man, I'd have to read them off to you. I don't know. They're indoor plants specifically.
Like a Peruvian cactus?
Oh, no. I got to build the greenhouse before I get that out here, man. I don't think it would survive these temperatures.
Well, all right, dude. So I got to start it off. I spent a good 20 minutes this morning watching a 3-minute fight.
I know, dude. I did too. And I'm like, why do they have this in slow-mo? Like, I swear to God, that's what I thought, man. I'm like, dude, this is in slow-mo. And then I thought, well, okay, what round is it? Maybe they're gassed out. And I looked, and it's like a couple minutes into the first round. And I'm like, no.
So in case y'all are wondering out there, we're talking about great-grandpa's Tito, I should be in a wheelchair, Ortiz, and Chuck, I look like I'm fighting in ice, Liddel.
Yes.
I mean, these cats look so slow. I don't know how how could they have even gotten a license to fight?
Yeah, man. Well, and because they fought in Los Angeles, and everything I've read and heard for years is that the California State Athletic Commission is the strictest in the nation in terms of their drug testing protocols. They've always been at the forefront of that, all that stuff, right? And I'm looking at it, and Tito's always pretty much looked the same way. I mean, I think maybe his head's actually a little bigger than it was before. Like this.
I don't know.
But Chuck did not look as physically good as he does now when he was a champion. And I'm like, man, that looks like a little TRT Victor. You know what I mean? And then you start watching him move, and for weeks people have been saying, oh, he's sandbagging in the training. He's just going through the motions to deceive people. And I'm like,
actually, I think he looked a little bit faster on the promos that were coming out, probably because they sped them up, because he looked even slower. I'm like, what? I didn't even know what I was really watching for a moment. These two geriatrics should not have been anywhere close to fighting.
There's been very few fights over the 2 decades I've been watching them or whatever where I've thought to myself, dude, this should not be allowed. Very few. On one hand, easily. And this might be one of the top ones. So here's some interesting things, man. And this is actually what I wanted to talk about today is the potential role of technology in this, right? Because to me, clearly Chuck has some serious traumatic brain injury. Just if you just look at the way his face when he's fighting against Tito in this fight, the way his face is processing the information in front of him is dramatically different than the way his body's processing it. So there's obviously some slowdown in the neurological wiring, right? Dude, so I can understand and put myself in the situation of understanding the conversation between Tito and his latest gold digger, who's a smoke show, but clearly, come on, man. I can understand her saying, yeah, Tito, you're the best ever. Go fight, right? Chuck's been married a long time, man. And I don't know if you watched that walk-in when he's like holding his kid's hands walking in, and he looks like Fred Sanford walking in Sanford & Son. I'm thinking to myself, man, I really hope that if I'm ever in that situation, Mrs. Pittman pulls me inside and says, listen, man, I got to break this down to you. Ain't no way I'm letting this happen. And here's why. And you're going to be angry at me, but it's for your health. It's for your best interest. I cannot believe nobody, including Dana White, told this dude, whatever you do, do not do this.
Well, Dana White did, right? Dana White had said to Chuck, I'm giving you a front office position. You are never fighting in the UFC ever again. And he even said about this fight, don't do it. So I give props to Dana in this case because Chuck was a draw. I mean, even still today, whatever it was, 6-7 years later since he's been out of fighting, he's a draw. So is Tito Ortiz. They're going to draw a crowd. They shouldn't be drawing a crowd anymore. People should not, because you basically are going to say these guys, they're going to be a vegetable.
Dude, the way he's moving, it reminds me of Muhammad Ali at the end. You know what I
mean? Chuck Liddell should never have ever been hit like that by Tito Ortiz.
How did he get a license, man? I mean, you said that. I can't. And then the ref is standing there and listen, man, I'll put it to you this way, brother. If that were you and I was still around and I was in the situation to do this, I would have bought the goddamn fighting promotion and just canceled it. I mean, listen, that could have been the knockout that puts him over the edge of ever being functional again.
Potentially, yeah. It just, and this is another reason why I didn't buy the fight.
No.
I mean, did I want to see it? Sure. Well, I'm just going to watch it on YouTube later in this case because I'm not about to put my money in this. Now, with all that being said, I think what Oscar is doing is the right thing. He had to have someone be willing to get out there to get an actual real legit promoter. So this way you don't have contractual obligations that are locking you in to a UFC, or whatever fighting promotion, like in boxing.
Right.
Mixed martial arts turns closer to boxing. You'll start seeing better fighters and better pay across the spectrum. And I think it will wind up being better for the sport. I just wish he could have done it with some other people. I mean,
yeah. Well, look, man, I'm certainly not going to begrudge anybody. Well, I'm not going to begrudge the market from serving the people because clearly it did. Clearly enough people wanted to watch that it was valuable to put it on. At least that was the mindset, right? I mean, I don't know what the pay-per-view buys were. They dropped the price like 3 times last week to buy it. It started at like 45 and it was down to 15 last night to buy it, to watch. I didn't see like any of it, so I don't know how full the forum was. But I don't know, man. I don't know.
Not something that I'm all that interested in buying because it was an exciting fight. Now, what would have been interesting, because essentially it really wasn't a trade between the UFC and the other promotion. They released them from their contracts to sign with the other promotion. What it would have been interesting is if they took those cats and did a one-off fight.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, so here's the technology part. So all fighters have to get a medical license to fight. And, they have to have like a physical. I'm fairly familiar with it, and it's fairly rigorous. They obviously have to pass drug testing for most athletic commissions in the U.S., so forth and so on. We have the technology. Why do you think reaction time and basic, let's say defensive, not offensive capabilities aren't measured and set to a threshold that like in this case, clearly Chuck was not going to be able to defend himself, man. Clearly. And so if he had failed these reaction tests, so forth and so on, he shouldn't have been granted a license. Why do you think there's no selective pressure to push technology in the fight game?
Because it's not subjective. It's more absolute.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't want that, because people want to believe, right? And there is some aspect that you can say is true to this, that when you're reacting against something that's not threatening, that you're not going to necessarily react as much because you don't have that fight or flight chemicals going on. Okay, but how much of that is really going to make that much of a difference? 5%, 10%? Don't know. It's not 100%.
Right.
If I had to guess, it's probably 10%. Which is still significant. If I have 10% better reflexes when it's a true fight or flight, that's a lot.
Sure.
But if all of a sudden, all right, let's say it is 10%, and my reaction time is, I don't know, we'll say 10 milliseconds or something, versus 7, where a normal person is 5 versus 3, that's a huge difference. And I completely made those numbers up. But at their age, dude, I could sit there and go, wow, here's Chuck Liddell getting ready to throw a punch, or Tito Ortiz who threw that kick. I'm going, he throws some roundhouse kick, and I'm going, Chuck Liddell 10 years ago would have been able to step right in at that point and just demolish him. He couldn't move.
There was a part where right before Tito hit him and knocked him down and out, you could see Chuck kind of step into the pocket and try to do that fadeaway counter. Mm-hmm. But dude, his arms never moved.
The brain is active, but the body can't move anymore.
No, you said it best. He was stuck in ice.
Yeah. I mean, I just started making that stuff up off the fly.
No, it was good, dude. That was a good one.
These people just come to me. I got material. But, you know, I'm glad that fight's over. I hope they both never fight again. It'll be a shame if they do, especially for Chuck. I mean, he was one of the big reasons when I started buying these fights. I mean, the man was electric.
Yeah.
And, you know, the only thing I could say for sure is that, you know what, at least this time, Tito was very respectful at the end of his post-fight interview. He's starting to show a little bit of class in his old age.
I'm torn on listening to him talk because he's a giant mushmouth. He says the craziest, most backward. The words aren't in the right order. I feel bad for the guy, man. I really do sometimes. Like, dude, you got to play that back and be like, oh man, I did it again.
Yeah.
See, but that's why he needs like a Bobby Heenan type manager to come in there and spit fire for him. You know what I mean?
Bobby the Brain Heenan.
Oh man, I love that dude growing up. I never wanted to be a wrestler. I wanted to be Bobby Heenan. Man, he would pull out like brown paper bagger, calling people brown paper baggers, ham and eggers. Oh my God, dude. That was classic stuff. Speaking of which, I didn't even plan to talk about this, but if you haven't seen it, you got to watch the Jake the Snake interview on the Joe Rogan podcast from this week. Oh my.
I heard about it. Dude. I haven't heard it yet. But I know he basically said some things like, you know, if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, he would be dead. And Diamond Dallas Page really helping him out, which is good. I'm glad to hear those things. But that's that. You know, when you mentioned the calling people ham and eggers, and that's like when I called that cat, that RSA, an ex-Red Team jobber.
Yeah, exactly.
These all cats that sit there and like, yeah, I was Red Team over at the Fort, and I'm like, yeah, who was it?
Yeah.
I'm like, half of my students are there now.
I think Chuck Liddell could be.
Yeah, he might be, dude. He did go to Cal Poly.
That's right, he did. Oh man, but dude, the Jake the Snake interview was, I liked it because it was part of the storytelling of his redemption from an extreme fall from grace, right? And then just his stories, like he told stories about Andre the Giant and Ricky Steamboat and all this stuff and the snakes. Like, dude, I don't know how many snakes he said he just left because they got out when he was in an arena and he couldn't find them, so he just left them. And snakes like getting out and going and attacking people on the other side. Dude, listen, man, it was really interesting to see that deep of an insight into our childhood.
Dude, that's hilarious.
Telling stories about Roddy Piper pulling a gun on him.
Really?
Yeah. It doesn't surprise me one bit. Oh man.
Dude, that is some. I'm gonna have to listen to it. Joe Rogan's got some interesting cats on there, dude. I mean, he's just
that podcast. Not that I shouldn't say I don't want this one to ever be like that, but it's not by its nature. But man, that show's come a long way. I watched it from its early teens when it was just a bunch of dudes, his comedian friends sitting on the couch, and it's regularly now the #1 in iTunes. Like I don't know when it's not.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like ours. I mean, ours is just, you know, we don't have a couch, but I'm in a cathedral.
Yeah. Well, and to be fair, man, neither of us hosted Fear Factor. Neither of us commentate the UFC. We don't have the gravity to accrete
yet.
We could. It would take work, but like anything else, if you work at it, it would.
Well, you know, as we've always said, we do this for us, and hopefully the people out there that watch later, they'll gain some insight on, our perspective of growing up in a technology world, on how to, have leadership, how to invoke leadership, critical thinking, and doing things the right way.
Speaking of which, I got a question for you.
All right, what do you got?
Pixel 3 XL.
Yeah, what about it? What do you want to know?
I love it. I love it. So here's my question. Would you agree or disagree with the statement? I'm going to make this claim. That probably which way? Both. That it's I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and it's come to me that philosophically this is the difference between Android and iOS. Android is a platform from which you can do whatever you want with whatever you want in terms of like integration, app platforming, so forth and so on, right? Data consumption, data generation, along the lines. Whereas philosophically, iOS is a prison. Once you're on it, it wants you in it, and it wants you in its ecosystem exclusively. And it's almost impossible to get out. What do you think?
I don't know that I agree all the way that iOS is a prison, but it's pretty close. They definitely control more of what you're capable of doing and limits you. Because they're, Apple's looking to make sure that the experience and all that kind of stuff stays in there, which is why you do find a lot more people developing on Android. Some medical device companies that I'm familiar with, they don't do their stuff on iOS. They're doing it on Android because they're able to get access to the system, and Android is just powerful to do it. So I completely agree with the base of your statements, 100%.
Well, a huge part of my personal productivity philosophy is if I pick an app, I want that app to be the same on every device that I can use it on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a trip coming up this week, and I'm going to take my Pixel Book because it's light, it's convenient, easy to use, and I can do everything I want on it. And so now I have this Android phone, and I'm really trying to get away from a proliferation of devices. Like with a phone of this size, which is why I got the XL, I don't need a tablet. There's no reason I need a tablet anymore. So why have one? So, right, there's no need to go get it. But that means I need to be able to do certain things on this that I otherwise would have done on a tablet, reading ebooks, writing like short snippets of notes and things like that. And so I started looking at an app that would allow me to write in plain text or Markdown that I could easily sync not only with a cloud solution like Dropbox or Google Drive, but also integrate with other, let's say, more full-fledged word processing apps like Scrivener is one example. And shit, there is. And the free version works great. There's no ads in it. You just don't have a ton of features. And even the full version is only $5. So come on, man. It ain't that much for an app. And what do you know? It's the exact same app on every Android device I've tested it on. It looks the same. It acts the same. It scales correctly. It all works the exact same way. And they all sync with each other because it relies on Dropbox. In this case, I'm using Dropbox, not Google Drive. But in that case, they're interchangeable for its storage. Dude, I can't do that on iOS. No. Either I have to get Scrivener on every device, which is a separate license, so you have to pay for it 2 or 3 times. And then you got to hope the syncing works right, because of course it wants to force you on to iCloud, which I don't want to use because I already have Dropbox. I don't need all this different storage. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm like, holy shit, dude. I think this is the philosophical difference, at least as I perceive it.
It's pretty, I would say that's true. And that's just more the reason why I have Android.
Holy shit, this is a good phone, by the way.
So who's making the Pixel 3? Is it LG or is it?
I don't know, man. That's a good question. I'd have to look at the chipset.
So the funny enough thing is that like the last one, I think that the bigger phone was made by Huawei, but the smaller one was like LG or something like that. Where's Death Star when you need him? This cat knows off the top of his head. Like he's got like all these phones and let's see, who makes Pixel 3?
3 and 3XL.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. That's a good question. I don't know who the hardware manufacturer is for this.
They're being produced by Foxconn.
Well, I mean, that doesn't surprise you.
Oh, not really at all. Let's see. All right. Crap comes up. Clock.
I think I'd have to look this up. But I'll tell you, man, even, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. This is the first thing that really impressed me with the handset. Look at the text. See if it focuses in. It's a little blurry. Let's see if I can get it out.
Right now it's all white.
Yeah.
Oh, now it's coming in, yeah.
Yeah. Dude, that is exactly what a Kindle looks like with its e-ink.
Nice.
So it's super clean to read on, man. And here's the thing. Of course, this has duplex. I haven't set it up yet, but that's the advanced assistant. I mean, I can already see this thing even through I don't know if you've noticed this in Gmail, how much you've been using Gmail lately, but they introduced that feature where it'll complete the sentence for you. You just hit tab and it'll finish it.
Yep.
But it'll do like full clauses, not just single words. So that's in this, man. And it's in the messaging app. And dude, is it efficient. And I can see it's learning. Because I have obviously little idiosyncratic ways of saying things to certain people.
Mm-hmm,
and man, dude, it's picking up fast. It's really fast at it. I'm super impressed with it, man. I wasn't super impressed with the price, but here's the thing. Of course, what I really thought I was going to get was the OnePlus 6T, but it won't work on Sprint.
It doesn't?
Nope.
They don't have GSM? I'm sorry, they don't have CDMA?
They have it, but not the specific version that Sprint will certify.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because of course this was like twice as much.
Yeah, of course.
But fuck it. I mean, I had that 6S Plus for 3 years, 4 years. I don't remember. So it's not like it's a bad investment for me. So I just thought, you know what? I can't take iOS anymore. I need a new phone because this one's starting to really slow. My 6 Plus was slowing down. Yeah, man. I don't know. I'm impressed with it so far.
Yeah, I wasn't able to quickly find as to which one, if this is LG or not.
It looks like an LG phone, but then again, I've never held a Huawei phone, or a Xiaomi is the new brand. That's the other Chinese one that's getting popular. Right. So, by the way, Claire,
Central. If they don't have the answer, I don't know who will.
While you're looking at that, the thing I did find for anybody that's curious is if you can get the Exynos International OnePlus 6 or OnePlus 6T, not the Snapdragon, that'll work. But that's that. Because I looked at, of course, Samsung. The S9 Plus is at least fairly rated, but dude, I don't want to deal with that bloat.
Oh yeah, the Samsung. Yeah, and this is just why I just pretty much stick with LG. I don't really get anything on there, and that's exactly the way I like it.
Yeah.
All right, I'm basicand done looking now. I can find it right away and don't care enough anymore.
Nah, it's let's agree it's one of them.
Yeah, and it's always surprising because I would have thought at this point Google would have just done their own manufacturing instead of having someone else do it. I mean, it's not like they don't have the means,
right?
Like you do it whenever you want.
I wonder. Yeah, I would just wonder. There must be some type of market advantage to not doing it, and maybe it's because they devote those resources to the software. Which, listen, man, this AI assistant's really slick, and I haven't even tapped into its power yet.
This is something that's interesting to me, and I'm curious as your thoughts of this. It appears that those people who have a fear of using technology, such as the analytics that you're getting there, or your Alexas, your Google Homes, They have a fear of that because, oh my gosh, it's always listening. It's always listening. But yet those same people have zero issues of going to like ancestry.com or the 23andMe and giving off their DNA to some company to find out their heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think they're okay with one but not the other?
Man, that's a good question, and it's a hard question. There's, as far as I can reason it out, there's a variety of factors. If I can just isolate it maybe to one big one, it's not the unknown, because in both cases it's unknown. I think it's more of an assumption, and I think the root of that assumption is actually propaganda. And here's what I mean by that. There's an enormous amount of persuasive, manipulative information circulating around these, let's call them smart assistants of any kind, right? Whether it's your phone, your tablet, one of these home devices, so forth and so on, listening. And it's manipulative and not persuasive because that immediately correlates, you know, in popular culture to the NSA listening, right? Because it's listening. There's a tie in the vernacular. Whereas Ancestry.com and 23andMe and those services don't listen. You see what I'm saying? And so I think people have a disconnect because of the language itself. Now, it's not like there's no stories about the database of health information being used for other things. There is, right? I mean, 23andMe has been subpoenaed and by law enforcement, and that information's been used at least once that I'm aware of. So it's not like it doesn't happen, and it's not been made known that it happens, but it's not listening. And I think psychologically, this is my folk psychology armchair opinion, right? Because of the manipulation of the propaganda, it seems much more immediate and present. Well, and physically it is. I mean, it's right there. You know what I mean? Whereas 23andMe is some abstract concept that it's not really real.
So is it agree? I agree with you. So was it, in your opinion, was it right or wrong for me to then tell some of these people, but now they have your DNA and and the government's now going to create a particular virus to kill out all the people with certain defects?
Yeah. What if they clone you and create a Manchurian candidate, and now you're framed for who knows what?
So I just start feeding into their paranoia. Like, yeah, but they're creating a virus or a bacteria that is going to kill out people with certain traits.
Undesirables. Yeah, it's eugenics at its height. I don't think that's wrong. I think it's comical, and it's somewhat pointing out the nonsense of the opinion, in my opinion, because it is nonsense. But look, and I'm not naive, and I don't think you are either. I'm not suggesting that any of this could never be used for nefarious purposes. I don't think that's not true, right? It's like you've said before. It's that the increase in my ability to function the way that I want to, having these things, is dramatically different than without them. You and I both have lived lives without this stuff. You know what I mean? And my life, to me, is dramatically improved because of it.
I agree, and that's where I continue to focus, because people go, "Oh my gosh, you're in security, and I can't believe you do this." I accept the risk. I'm fine with it. Here's the thing: because of all the stuff that's happened out there with the types of jobs that I've had, and I can do everything right, my information's still been breached so many times by me doing everything I can, but the other company's not. So, I mean, even the federal government can't seem to do it right, which is why OPM was breached.
Well, so like, here's an analogy for you. I've been thinking about this because I'm actually almost done with my privacy book finally. If you look at the average worker in let's say not the IT department, but in a business that is laced with technology, there's an enormous amount of power in harnessing that technology to boost yourself up, not only becoming better at your job, more informed, more knowledgeable, more valuable to the company, but also, of course, rising up the socioeconomic ladder within that hierarchy, right? You would agree?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. You and I both know and I think our viewers would agree here and later, that the majority of people don't do that. They hold to, let's say, the minimum, and they essentially coast. And that's because of their psychology. It has nothing to do with the technology, right? So this is what I find interesting about that being true, and these people that have a nonsensical fear of things like the assistants. They assume that it's going to be used to your detriment. What they don't realize, because they're holding the lowest part of the equation, is that because of its power, you can harness it and do whatever you want with it, including fighting back.
Sure.
Right? And it's just that the second is much harder and much more work, and you have to take personal responsibility for it. Whereas in the other, you don't. Okay, so here's the perfect example too, because you were present for this conversation when we were having that nonsensical discussion about spirits around your kitchen table.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. There was a stark difference in the view of meditation, being that other people had meditative experiences where things came to them. Whereas my experience is I go to things. And that is a difference in degree and kind that I'm talking about. Sure. I'm willing to have these things around me because I'm going to go to where I want using them. I'm not letting them be here waiting for things come to me.
Right. One is a victim mindset, and the other one is not. Right. You know, it's difficult for people to believe that they have this power. And there's a pretty decent book, and it's called like the 49 Laws of Power or something along those lines.
Right.
I believe in all of them as to what this cat did, because he wrote it in jail, but it's pretty good. It's a pretty decent book. But the whole part is you have to give someone else power over you in order for you to feel bad about something. You can either take ownership and be like, you know what? This is who I am, and all right, I allowed you for a moment to upset me, and now it's gone. It's done. Or you can say, I'm going to be sad for, eternity or however long, and be a victim.
Yeah.
You have to take control over your being. And I think a lot of people just don't do that. And in that conversation, we got to see those who go, oh my gosh, I'm being attacked, versus, no, I'm the one making the journey.
Right. Well, so I had a thought and I lost it. Shit. Well, you can look at it like this way too. So, and I'm not so naive to think that I don't have anything to hide. It's not about that. I'm well aware of the fact that I say certain things that, given the right shift in the hierarchy and its power structure, that people could hold me accountable for those utterances. Fair enough. I don't concentrate on that. What I'm trying to concentrate on is becoming so powerful that I'm immune to it. Okay, yeah, I said it. But once we agree upon a definition of information and how it's not permanent, it's not currency, it's not who I am now. Maybe it's reflective of who I was at best, but I don't even think that's true. It has no more power. There's nothing you can take that I've ever done or said. You can marginalize me. You can try. We've talked about this, like with sometimes I swear a fair bit. You can take that and decide that that's the evidence that I'm not a good character. But that doesn't make it true.
Sure. No, in our conversations, I would say that you're not trying to become so powerful. You're trying to remove other people's power over you, which is different.
Yeah, fair distinction. Fair distinction.
And which is quite funny to me, because you're becoming more and more like Jedi every day. Pretty soon you're going to be off on a rock meditating by yourself, having removed all attachment.
Well, see, I sit back and I wonder, why can't you be both? Wouldn't that be the best?
Well, for the most part, I would say that you should be.
Right.
So it is interesting to me, the aspect of people worry so much about what others think and what they're going to do, instead of focusing on yourself and how you're going to achieve your maximum potential and your goals.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't tell you how many people continue to say, "Oh, you can't." What? What do you mean I can't? I'm going to. There's nothing that's going to stop me except me. And why would you let in? So our good friend TK, he came out several months ago and did a guest speaking spot for me at the bank, and he said something that was pretty profound, and that is the reason why people ring the bell when they're going through their SEAL training is because they've allowed someone else to take their dream, no matter what that is.
Yeah.
Are you going to allow someone else to take your dream from you? All those cats that make it to the point to where they're going into that SEAL training, they're all more than physically capable. It's all mental. Who has the mental fortitude in order to persevere?
Yeah. Well, you know, man, and maybe we'll finish with this. This is why, especially recently, I've become so interested in Freemasonry. And here's why. So I've reached the conclusion that doctoral training, we both went through pretty much the exact same thing, wasn't an exercise in knowing more. It was an exercise in knowing less so that you could know more, right?
Sure.
And then acquiring the tools to do that. We can say, i.e. learning, right? Whatever that means. And so I've also concluded for myself that I've reached the end of the path that I can do by myself, so that I now need a group of people around me that will allow me to continue down this road of self-improvement. And so I started thinking about, okay, well, how do you improve? Like, this isn't SEAL training. I'm not going to go out and do 100 push-ups. That's not the type of thing I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is mental training. What's that?
Could you do 100 push-ups?
No. Wait, all at once or like over the course of a day?
All at once.
No, dude, no. Those days are gone, man. Those days are gone. I left them behind. You know, when I was 16 and shredded and fit, yes. Now, no. Although, man, listen, I got to update everybody. We did do the 5K.
Who won?
Marsha. Like, listen, man. You want to talk about sandbagging? She was sandbagging me the whole time. And hey, fair play. Fair play. I'll say this, though. We both finished in under 35 minutes, which was way ahead of what we had projected for ourselves. It went well. Nobody got hurt. But we got to like the last mile, and I could see that like she was starting to do like a half step faster, you know, every so many yards. And I'm like, she's going to take off, and I'm not going to be able to catch her because I'm obviously starting to lose power. You know what I mean?
She was like Steve Prefontaine.
Yeah. And
keep up with her.
And then, man, I got this cramp in my hip. And I had to stop to stretch it out. And she did the right thing. She said, "Oh, do you want me to stay with you?" And you could just hear the tone. And I had to say, "You know what, baby, go ahead." So I lost. I will redeem myself today, though, because
Mrs. Pittman,
what's that?
Ruthless, she will cut you.
Dude,
I told you.
She had her game face on, man. And hey, fair play. Fair play. It was a fair contest. There was no interference of any kind. Perfect weather. We ran on the same course at the same time, but I could tell, man. I could tell. We got into like mile 1.5, essentially halfway through. And I'm like, she's not showing any signs of weakness. And it seems like this is kind of easy for her. And it's, you know what I mean? Dude, a 5K is no joke when it's your first one. It's still fucking 3.2 miles. And then we got to like that last mile, and I'm like, dude, she's speeding up. But I'll say this. I got the cramp, and I had to stretch it out. She ran on the inside the entire time, so she had the advantage. I gave her that. And that won't be repeated the next time because we're doing another one Christmas. I will be redeemed today, though, because at Thanksgiving, one of the aunts challenged me to a 10-pin bowling match, best 2 out of 3. And that's today in a couple hours.
Woo!
She claims that she had an average of over 200.
And 10-pin. Huh?
And 10-pin when she was 20. Now, I hate to break it down, but she ain't 20 anymore. I love her to death. She's a great person. But I'm going to have to get a little ruthless up in this piece today. I can't lose 2 matches in a row.
I hope you do not.
Well, man.
Then Ian might start smelling blood on his rematch. Anyway, we sidetracked. You were talking about.
The Freemasonry. So words are power, and so I started this. So I'm working on this other piece of research I've told you about with artificial intelligence and the construction of its consciousness. And my colleague and I have been talking about what we've boiled down to narrative and time. And so I've been thinking a lot about narrative and time and what those things mean. And in a nutshell, this is what I've concluded for myself for the piece I'm working on, is personhood. That's how we define ourselves to ourselves as a abstract person, is through the story we tell ourselves as we live over time. And so if that's true, as much as it may or may not be, that means words matter. And so the words you tell yourself can matter. And so if you can learn more powerful words, you can become more powerful, for yourself, right? This is about self-actualization and self-improvement.
Sure.
And so that's what really attracts me about this potential experience in Masonry, is learning, let's say, words of power. They don't call them that. And seeing how far can you turn that dial up for yourself so that you become better, so that you can also help other people better. That's really it.
No, I think that's the right way to look at it. It is very difficult for any of us to take this journey of improvement without the assistance of others. And I know for myself, I learn so much more about myself when I help others. And that is a big reason why I spend a lot of my time mentoring others. And I find great enjoyment with it.
Yeah, well, it's same thing for me with mentoring, but particularly writing too, because it's really just an exercise in thinking. Mm-hmm. And when you express those thoughts, either on paper, so to speak, or to another person, you're actualizing those words. Mm-hmm. And I think a big part of what doctoral training is, and I think this is what differentiates good students from not so good students, from average, let's say, is you learn how to observe and pay attention. And the more you pay attention to yourself and what you say and the way you behave, the more you can refine that, right?
That's very true. With my recent promotion, I spent a majority of my time at some of these new senior committee meetings listening. And then the last one, I went and I spoke quite a bit. And people, I believe, were a little bit shocked as to how much I've heard, not just there, but at other places. And this whole banking thing isn't as difficult as what some may make it believe. It's all the same. Applications may be different, but I'll break it down. And TCP/IP is still the same. DNS still works the same. Data is still data. Transmits at the same speed of light that every other type of data transmits at. So
that's one of the things I've always loved about technology, man. There's a truth in its ability to almost act like an ether, it being that you can take whatever it is and it doesn't change because it is that, and you can use it to do all these cool, wonderful things and all these different business verticals, and it's still its simple self.
Yep, you got it. So everything is always, there is a universal truth.
I think so. I don't know what it is, of course, but I think it's there.
I agree.
It's certainly what we can define as constants.
Right. All right. So we're only going to have one more of these things before New Year's Eve.
Yes.
We just have to figure out when that's going to be.
That's right.
So maybe we should do a Sunday evening one so Pete can join, and then maybe we can convince the only doctor that comes on this show that doesn't vote and wears stupid AirPods. Maybe we'll do a Sunday evening, halfway into December, and then a New Year's Eve one.
I think that's fair, man.
All right. We'll just figure out that date and we'll let everyone know.
Yeah, I think that's a good plan. Get to 100 right on New Year's Eve, set the year up right.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, everybody.
All right, folks.
That's it. 98 in the bag.
And we'll definitely have our predictions on 100 since it'll be New Year's Eve.
Oh, man, I've been seeing people rolling them out again. Oh, my God.
Woo!
All right. Have a good Sunday, everybody.
Be excellent to one another.
Later.